This is the Collecting Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Purse, here with your co-host, Bill Hamill.
I'm somewhat more comfortable collecting real estate than I am collecting other stuff.
Joel Owens, thank you for being here this morning on the Collecting Real Estate Podcast. Really excited to hear more about your Triple N experience. Tell us how'd you get into real estate?
Yeah, so I was in the food business, and basically I worked for Domino's Pizza. Mike Orcutt, Cowabunga Incorporated. He was the largest franchisee in the United States. And basically, I was driving for him, and one of the older drivers that's about his 70s in age, he had inherited an old laundromat that was in the city of Marietta, and him and his brother co-owned. And a developer had approached them, a commercial developer, to assemble a bunch of land pieces on 25 acres for a big, like 650,000 square feet mixed use retail project. And I had never done that, but he knew I was in real estate, and he had me, I was newly licensed, and he had me read over the contract. And then we met with the developer. And then the developer called me afterwards and said that usually people only catch one or two outs in the contract to extend or, do all these things with the contract or get out of it. And they said I caught every single out in the contract, and no one had ever done that before. And so they wanted me to go assemble the other pieces of land for them on the project. So I spent so many years doing that. And then after that, we had an economic downturn, and so it was cheaper for people to buy existing buildings than to construct at that point. And so then I went into actually apartment buildings, selling the larger apartment buildings then for a while. And then I owned a 20 unit apartment building myself. And, after I did that for a while in the commercial land assemblage, which takes a long time, I just didn't personally, you got to have a specific taste for, dealing with residential tenants and all that kind of stuff. I just learned from doing it. It wasn't my thing. I wanted a more simple life. So I went into triple net. I'd already known the business side of things, being in management and owning a restaurant and that kind of thing in the food business. And so it seemed like a natural progression for me to go into that space. And today it's about 95% of my business. Occasionally I'll still do a big multifamily for a past client or something like that. But 95% of my business is single tenant, multi-tenant. I'm an investor and a principal broker on my company, and I review about 1,000 properties a week nationally for single tenant, multi-tenant properties.
Wow, very impressive, very impressive. Going back to that beginning stage, being in the food business, and at what age were you reviewing those contracts where you were able to do that thorough review and provide that value? Did you have education to do that, or was that something of a skill that you just realized you just picked up?
Yeah, so I'm 47 years old now. Started being licensed 2004, so I'm going on 19 years doing this. And what I basically did is, we didn't have the internet was just kind of emerging back then. So what I would do is I'd go to Barnes and Noble because I didn't have any money. And I was a Domino's pizza driver, so I'd go to Barnes and Noble bookstore, and they had these couches there, and I'd go to the real estate section, and I would pull like I was a speed reader, and I would pull like four books off the shelf, and I would read through the books, and a lot of them had fluff, and then some good content. And then every once in a while, I'd get a book where it's like every single page I had to read it like two or three times because the content was that good. And then I would take the $10 that I had or whatever, and I would buy that book, and I would take that book home. So over a span of, I don't know, a year's time or something, I read like every book that would come out in the real estate section there, and just learn by doing that. And then I would have maybe like 7 or 8 books at home that were like really really good that I had to read a bunch of times and just take notes. And I would find some stuff on the internet, but back then it was sparse. It was like dial up back then. So I'd go to the libraries too. I'd go to the libraries and see if I could find a book I hadn't seen before in real estate or something like that. And I would just kind of learn that way.
That's great. Talk about bootstrapping. That's a true entrepreneur right there. And I like how you mentioned that having a residential tenant's not for everyone. It's not easy. From the outside, it might look like you're just collecting rents, but there's a lot going on behind the scenes there. It's not for everyone, like you said. So I'm not very familiar with triple net leases. From what I know is what I've learned in books or podcasts. I want to learn a lot more about it today. Tell me the difference between single and multi tenants. I heard you mention that.
Well, in a level of work scale, so single tenant is just a single tenant in a building, and on the quality spectrum, that could be a invest. Hold on a second. That can be an investment grade, triple B minus or better tenant rated by Standard and Poor's. That can be a subsidiary of a large national company on the guarantee on the lease. It could be a large private company that's not credit rated. It could be a large franchisee, small franchisee, uh, mom and pop. And so the level of work and risk involved is based on those tenant types and the level of the guarantee and all of that. Now, the other type that goes into the work a component of it is single tenant versus multi-tenant. So you get into multi-tenant, you could have an Aspendental, T-Mobile, Starbucks, 10-year leases, 10% rental increases every 5 years for the primary term of the lease. And you have a property manager and the tenants pay common area maintenance above the base rent. Um, but you might be looking at a report once a month and maybe occasionally emailing the property manager. There's really nothing to do there. Then you move along the spectrum to where you've got one national tenant, one regional tenant, one mom and pop tenant. There's a little bit more work involved in handholding. And then you move along the spectrum to where they're almost all mom and pop tenants or, 2 or 3 unit location operators. And that gets more intensive. Is it as intensive as owning a multifamily building on the spectrum? No, it's not. It's not that intensive. It's less intensive than that. But compared to single tenant or the 3 tenant where they're all investment grade credit, it's more work. So then you have to quantify, you know, what is the cap rate? What is the debt I can get it at? What is my cash on cash return? Is that anticipated extra yield going in and over time worth the extra headache for me versus the single tenant where I do nothing and the tenant takes care of everything?
Gotcha, gotcha.
Thank you for that. Before we go any further, can you just explain what a triple net is for anyone listening?
So there's a bunch of different grades of triple net. So there's absolute triple net, which is where the tenant takes care of the property maintenance to the property, the insurance on the property taxes. You do absolutely nothing. It's like owning a stock, except you get the security of investment grade credit tenant backed by thousands of locations. It's rated by Standard and Poor's that watches their credit like a hawk, like daily, weekly. Um, and that to be credit grade rated, the chances of their default is usually like less than 1% or something like that when you get into that high credit. So it's like these are companies, a lot of companies that have been in business 50, 100 years. They've been through a bunch of economic cycles and they have deep, deep war chests. They're used to like, okay, if the cycle's in a recession, if we're in an upswing, if we're in a stabilization, we know how to make money in any cycle and thrive and prosper and be okay. And so that's like ultimate security in a owner's eyes and in the lender's eyes, for security of the asset and the long-term lease and stuff like that. So if you can tell someone, hey, you don't have to own a stock and you can have, ultimate security and you don't have to worry about volatility day to day. And if a company's, hiding 2 sets of books and they're going to be worth nothing, go to boom to bust and they expanded too fast and all this kind of stuff. And then a recession happens or we're at war, you still get that rent like clockwork. It doesn't matter. Like all my clients during the COVID thing, we had all investment grade credit investments. They didn't once get any asked for rent abatement. Nothing shut down. They got paid every single month. Didn't have to do squat. You know, now some other people in the space that bought lesser credit tenants, like small franchisees that own 10 locations, yeah, those went for PPP loans, and they had to work out with their landlords and all that kind of stuff. And that's why I counsel my clients to only buy specific types of assets, because triple net is not all equal. And then there's other types of leases. So there's a double net lease, which a lot of times they'll disguise and just say triple net, and people think it's absolute, but it's not. And depending on what's written in the lease, you could be responsible for the parking lot, the utility lines, the roof, the structure, the doors, all this kind of stuff. And so that can act like a gross lease in itself, which gets away from the triple net aspect of being the passive return. So we'll do double net properties if it's just like roof and structure, and we get an inspection before we close on the property. And then the roof usually has a warranty that transfers to the owner on a new building, like 15, 20 years. And so there's really nothing for you to do there. Maybe every 2 or 3 years, you'll get a request about some seam that's got a little bubbling on it that the contractor goes out for the warranty and fixes. There's really nothing to do there if everything checks out. But if it gets into like, parking lot, utility lines, all this other stuff where you got to like monitor it, and even if the tenant reimburses it, you got to keep track of cam and all that. That gets more into like a retail center type of operation. And you got to ask yourself, like, if I'm going to do all that, I might as well just buy the retail center at the higher cap rate and get the higher yield if I'm going to do that amount of work. And then the other type is, well, there's three other types that are kind of more rare. So there's the ground lease, where you own the land but not the building. The benefit to the ground lease is that the rents are typically below market. So a Chick-fil-A on a ground lease in an urban core location might be $4 million, and the rent might be $25 a foot. But if it was absolute triple net, it'd be $8 million and $50 a foot. So you buy that ground lease at, say, 4.5 cap rate. It's got 10% rental increases every 5 years in the primary lease term. And then you blend that cap rate up over time while you own it in that return. And then if Chick-fil-A ever decides to leave, generally you get the building for free in that situation, because they built the building. You get it for free, and you can convert to absolute triple net in the market and greatly increase the value of the property. That way. The downside to a ground lease is you have no tax depreciation. You don't own the building. You don't own anything like that. Another type is a leasehold. It's where, and this is more rare, it's where a developer wants to put a tenant on a piece of land, and the owner doesn't want to sell the land. And so there's basically a ground lease from the landowner to the developer. The developer builds the building with a lease in place, and then the developer sells off that leasehold to a buyer, where the buyer just owns the building but not the land. You can get 100% tax depreciation that way because you're not buying any land. But the downside to that is it's very hard to finance with a lender, because they want the landowner to subordinate their interest in case the lender had to foreclose on the building in the future. And a lot of times the landowners don't want to do that. And so they're very hard to finance. They're usually all cash deals. And if the tenant ever goes dark, you could have two mortgages if it's financed, one to the lender in the building and one to the landowner on the ground lease. So when you're buying those types of properties, you need to see if there's a right of first refusal, to where you have the option to buy the land if that landowner ever wants to sell. So while you control the building, you can eventually control the land too. If especially, it's usually leaseholds are very premium locations, and that's why the landowner doesn't want to get rid of it. They want to monetize it and get the ground lease rent on it, but they don't want to give up the land because it's very valuable. And then the other type, the last one is a zero cash flow property. So this is kind of a more advanced technique. So you'll have some pharmacies that are like this, to where, say you sold an apartment building and the proceeds were $5 million, right? And you wanted to preserve a 1031 exchange. Well, you could buy, say, a Walgreens at $7 million. And typically when it takes 35% down, you could put down maybe 15 or 20% down on a zero cash flow deal and buy into that property. And without all the payments are going to pay down the mortgage each month. So there's zero cash flow, but you're accumulating equity really fast. So at the end of the primary lease term, the loan ends at the end of the primary lease term, and you've got a zero balance on the property. The property's paid off when the option comes up. But the kicker with this one is um, you're able to do what's called a pay down readvance feature. And there's specific attorneys that help with this. And so if your proceeds were 5 million, but it only costs, it's only 1.4 million on the 7 million to assume the loan, then after closing, you send a letter to the lender to readvance the excess funds, and then you can use those funds how you want at your leisure, at your time, while preserving the 1031 exchange. You can readvance out that excess money. So now you bought the Walgreens, it's building up a lot of equity quickly, and you're taking a big chunk of your 1031 and you're readvancing to go buy whatever you want to buy with it.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. Thanks for that education based on pretty much all those different scenarios of leases. I'm sure I looked at Steven when you started talking about that zero cash flow because that was the same exact scenario I was describing to him, right? If you sold a bunch of multifamily, which I had done a couple of years ago, and 1031 exchange into a Walgreens, ultimately you create that extremely passive and very low risk property owner situation. So there's a lot of value there, just by having low risk and being as passive as you can be in real estate. I did notice also at the beginning, most of what you look at as I think in any of these scenarios, you're really, really focusing on risk profile and ultimately returns accordingly. So, to make a comparison in our lane, which is the multifamily business, yes, during the pandemic, if you had A, B type properties, those people paid rent. If you had anything less than that, then yeah, we were challenged with people that couldn't pay rent, which is very analogous with some of the risk profile that you were dealing with through that pandemic. Question for you: when you are looking at a property, do you try to match up a national tenant or even a mom and pop tenant for that property before you buy it, where if you're able to make a good match, you move forward on the purchase? Does that scenario happen, or is it always make the purchase and then go through your list of potential tenants?
It depends on, so that question is more like that's the developer value add side versus a client that would buy. So what I do is I have two things that I do. So I don't do property management. I don't do tenant rep, leasing up as a broker. I only do two things. So I buy properties myself for cash that are value add. And then I have my clients that typically buy the stabilized triple net properties that are 1031 or non 1031. They're usually high level business owners like me that have a lot of free cash flow. They're high level corporate executives are in the tech space typically, or they're doctors, surgeons, usually making $1-2 million a year. And they just want a handoff. They're like, I got this money collecting dust in my bank account. I don't know what to do with it, but I'm keeping it safe and I got 2-3 million or whatever. What do I do? And I want to pop it into a triple net property, and with rental increases, I'm getting maybe 5% cash on cash after a 35% down payment. With my mortgage equity pay down, I'm hitting maybe a 9 to 10% total yield. And in normal inflationary times, where inflation's 2 or 3%, I'm outpacing inflation by a factor of 2 or 3 and keeping my money safe. I'm happy as a pig in mud with that. I'll eat it up all day long. Take it all day long for that and be passive, no headache, no worries about nothing. And so on that side, that's the client side. And then on me is the value add side. So what I'll do is I'll buy something for cash without a tenant in place yet, because a lot of these, I know gurus, they'll teach there's financing out there, hey, find a property, tie it up, try to get a tenant to commit, and then we'll get a lease and a forward commitment LOI, and then a lease, and then we'll, fund you to close on the property. And the reality is, if an owner is selling something that's a blend and extend where the lease is coming due and they can extend it out longer for value, or it's a dark building paying rent or not paying rent, or if it's vacant out parcel or something, if you're going to tie up their property for 8 or 9 months, they just rather do it themselves, and put the tenant in there. I mean, you're not giving them any value. So what I do is I come in and I tell like my clients, my passive investors, it could take us up to a year to lease this up, but it's a good spot. And I do that my price. I tell the seller, I'm like, I'm not the highest price, but I pay cash and I'll close in 30 days, and I'll wait a year to turn the property, up to a year to turn the property around. And my investors understand that. So it's a different type of, you've got different types of passive investors with syndication. So you've got, the guys that are just accredited that maybe make 100,000 a year or something like that. And they're like, man, I've got to have that 7% preferred return hitting day one, because they only make 100,000 a year at their job and they're barely accredited. They got that way through investing in a couple of properties and went up way in value, and they barely qualify. They want that money right away. My clients are usually ultra wealthy, and so they've got making millions of dollars a year cash flow anyway, so they don't give a crap about that. They're like, okay, we park the money here. Then in a year, when a new tenant's in place, as an example of my deals, it would have maybe a 14% cash on cash return once it's stabilized, 7% preferred return to the investor. We split the cash flow thereafter 50-50. So I would get the other 3.5%. They would get the other 3.5%. So they'll be hitting 10.5%. And then we'd be hitting a 2 to 3 equity multiple once a tenant is in and it's stabilized, because I'm buying these buildings for less than you can build them for these days, and just retrofitting them. So if you tell someone, hey, I can double your, it's nothing's a guarantee, of course. If anyone tells you that, they're full of crap. That's a syndicator, they're lying. But, there's a risk with anything that you do. But if you could double your money in a span of, even let's say 2 or 3 years with a single credit grade tenant or a strong tenant, people love that. They love putting in 100 or 200,000 when I'm buying these deals for like, 600,000-700,000 or something like that. They're easy to raise for. I mean, usually when I get a request from someone to answer a bunch of questions, it's already oversubscribed. It's like it's not that I'm not going to answer the questions. It's just it's already sold out. I can't even, I buy my stuff myself with my cash, and then when I have too much of my cash out, I'll just go to my passive investors. And I have a principle, like when you asked about the value. So on the client side and my side, I have a principle that I kind of coined, and it's called dirt first. And so since I've been on the land assemblage side of things when I started out, and then I've worked my way up to owning my own company as a principal broker, and then I'm also an investor, I can give my clients a 360-degree view of the value of the property. So it's not just the building, it's not the quality of the construction, it's not just the investment grade tenant, it's also the lease and how that's structured, and it's also the location and how the parking ratio is, and how the parcel shape and size is, and the sight lines at the road, if it's down in a hole up in a hill, if it's got cross feeder traffic without people having to go back on the main road again to get to other places, it's got back anchors. If the traffic count, you could have 50,000 cars a day go by, and you could have a median in the road, and on your side you can only get 10,000 cars, and you got 40,000 cars on the other side of the road, even though it's got 50,000 cars a day. Or the business could be, they do a lot of breakfast business for a food restaurant, and they're on the going home side instead of the going to work side. So all these things make a huge difference on the success of a property. And so I've just evaluated like probably over 1 million properties before, because I just look at so many of them. And so it becomes your second nature to assess risk with these properties all the time.
So you're adding a lot of value here. Joel, you answered my two questions I had written down. I had, who are you targeting here as clients, and is there any value add potential? And you did a great job explaining both of those. But then you brought up one of my favorite words, and that's syndication. And it sounds like you're involved in that space as well. So am I correct that you have your own investments, you have clients that you find properties for as a broker, and then you also syndicate with passive investors?
Yeah, so in the typical sense, I've just kind of through my regular clients, I've kind of built up many thousands of contacts over the years, or tens of
Hmm.
thousands of contacts. So over 2 decades of time, I've literally talked to thousands of investors over the phone. And sometimes triple net isn't right for them at that time in their life because they're still like hyper wealth building and they're real young, or it's just not a fit for what they want to do. And that's fine. That's great. But I keep them in my contact database and I have a relationship with them over time. And then there's other people that are interested, but maybe they were a doctor that just out of school when they were just still stacking some money, and then they contact me like 5 years later, that kind of thing. And so when I do a syndicate, it's not really like you put an offering out there and you've got all these unknown people coming to you. It's more like I set up the operating agreement and the GP and the LP, but I already have existing relationships with these people. So when I do a raise, they're already people that I know. So it's not like I'm going out there and getting, random people to invest that I don't even, know basically on these deals. Um, and then, yeah, I own some myself, and then I syndicate out the other ones because once you stabilize a property, if it's an investment grade credit tenant, typically you can refinance out within 6 months and get your money back out to recycle. But if it's, a mom and pop tenant or something like that, um, some of these lenders want to see like, 9 to 12 months of payments. They want to see like a longer period of time before you can, refinance out on those types of properties. Now, for value add, I don't help people find value add because there's no money in it for me. So, for example, if I found someone a single tenant property for $1 million, where I'm getting paid like whatever 25,000 in commission, but I'm having to like look through heaven and earth for that property, it's not worth my time because if I syndicate it, I'm getting maybe a half a million to a million value along with the investors on the upside for myself for total return. So if someone's buying a retail center that's value add where it's 5 million or 7 million or something like that, where I'm going to broker that deal and I'm getting paid a couple 100,000 for my time on commission, then I'll work on something like that for a value add. But as far as like the smaller stuff, I don't do that because it's just I'd be going backwards in the amount of money I make per hour. Like just I'll give you an example. One of my clients contacted me. Is a doctor. He owns some apartments in Phoenix that he bought over 10 years ago, lives in Phoenix. He was in a 1031 exchange with about 8 figures of proceeds. And we bought and closed on 3 single tenant triple net properties. Um, and, the amount of return that I make per hour for that is, is huge. So on my brokerage side, as a principal broker, I make, you know, millions of dollars a year doing that in income. Just doing that. And then on the other side, I make money with the value add stuff too, and then the syndication. So I love single tenant because it's small ball. Like you have, if I ever need to sell off a property, there's like so many buyers for this stuff. In these small properties. I mean, it's just like there's a lot of people that own a multifamily building, for instance, or a house, and if they make 100,000 a year, their net worth maybe shot up to 2 million, and they're like, "Wow, that multifamily did great for me, but I don't want the headache anymore." And so they want a 1031 exchange and take 6 or 700,000 and buy like a $2.5 million triple net property, putting 35% down and getting a loan for the rest, and then now they can, get like 100,000 passive income or and then they can basically work toward escaping the rat race and live off the money. And there's just a big, huge amount of people that want to do that.
That's great. So many angles in real estate to benefit. And I'm not surprised based on what you're doing with the commercial world, triple nets and single tenant. There's so many similarities here, like Stephen mentioned. We specialize in that value add because you can buy something, put work into it, or reposition it with management and create value immediately. You're doing the same thing as an investor. And boy, can I see the amount of questions that come in from potential investors for some of the commercial deals. The one commercial deal that I did, not at your level by any means, but I learned many years ago when I was looking at my commercial deal, the value of that main road and that green arrow going into my property had so much value to it just for the traffic to steer into my property, which was certainly a learning experience. What I also have a similarity with, I always found was an interesting balancing act, was I've always been an investor, but also a broker. Are you ever tied there where, okay, you see a deal, you can do a value add and benefit on the investor side, but you have clients that you've been working with that may be interested in that same deal. Are you ever involved in that balancing act where you feel obligated to service that client with that deal where it would work great for you on an investment side?
No, because as I mentioned before, we're in different spaces. So, for instance, like a lot of the single tenant stuff that's 2 million and below, this value add that I'd be buying, I don't work with clients purchasing that because there's no money in it for me. So like if they're buying, someone approaches me to my website, hey, I want to look for 1 million value add at single tenant. I would tell them I don't have time for that. It's a waste of money for me. If a client's buying a $10 million triple net deal where I'm making 200 to 300,000 in commission, reviewing one lease on a stabilized investment grade credit tenant with their 3 million in proceeds on the 1031 exchange, why would I look through 5,000 properties on $1 million value add that's got all this hair on it to make like 20 something thousand? It doesn't make any sense. The only way I'm going to do that is if I buy it myself and double or triple the value of it, and I get 50. The syndication is different. So a multifamily, typically, you're taking 20 or 30% because you're talking a 50 or $100 million deal. When you're talking sub $2 million deals in retail, I get a 50-50 split on the upside with my investors. So I give them a 7% preferred return, but I take 50% because these are smaller deals. If you had an office building that's worth 50 million and you pump 20 million into it and whatever, it's got 30 million upside and you're taking 30%, well, that's 9 million bucks. You're making a huge hit on that one property. You're not making those huge hits on these smaller, you got to stack more of these smaller retail deals. So my clients that are buying value add are buying like, you know, 5-10 million dollar retail centers that have some value add component to them, where I'm brokering those deals because I don't want to own the retail centers where they do. It's not like what I space I want to be in. My mom's 79. I've got a 2.5-year-old son. My wife would like to travel, and I'm kind of a cross. I tell people I'm a cross, but a lot of people in my space are like suit and tie guys. I'm a cross between a Jimmy Buffett and a Rodney Dangerfield. If that's my personality type. I'm an easygoing person.
You're in the right club
If
here.
I'm walking around, you'll just see me in normal clothes and stuff. I'm just a normal, everyday type of guy that knows how to do this type of stuff really well, and I just stay in those lanes. Like I've kind of built my ideal life and my ideal client that I'm looking for. That I've just after you've done it so much and talked to so many people over so many years, you just refine it to the point that you absolutely know what you want to work on and what you don't want to work on. And it's okay to say no to
Mm.
people. I mean, I have people sign an exclusive written agreement to work with me. I had a guy approach me with 25 million the other day, and he was one of these types that's like, well, I want to kind of look. I don't really know about triple net, but I kind of want to look on my side a little bit and have you help me and do this. And I'm like, I'm too busy for that. You got to be all in. If you want to go get a junior agent that's 2 or 3 years in the business that doesn't know what the hell they're doing and have little experience, and you want to put your capital at risk for that just so you can kind of look on the side and do your own thing, that's great. Go for it. He's like, you don't want to work with me? I'm like, no, I don't want to work with you because I get a bunch of people that sign the exclusive agreement all day long. Why do I need to like vary from my business model? It just be like it'd be like a passive investor coming to you guys on your syndication rates and saying, I want to restructure every part of the way you do a syndication. You'd be like, get lost, get out of here. You know, you don't need everybody. I read something the other day that people over $1 million represent about 4% of the U.S. population. So that's about 14 million people in the United States alone that are millionaires now. So you don't need everybody. There's tons of money out there. That doesn't even include, private capital companies that want to give you money and institutions and all that. These are just individual people. I mean, there's money everywhere out there. So I would tell anybody whether they're investing in multifamily and going to be a syndicator. Um, Design your clear vision of what you want and where you want to go and stick to that. Do not deviate from that. And eventually you'll figure it out. It'll gain traction and you'll get to success. But if you just keep, having some broad thing where you're just kind of throwing stuff to the wall and see what sticks, you're not going to go deep with it and you're not going to have the focus and the success that you want.
A lot of good points there. Building your ideal life. That's what this is all about. This real estate investing, collecting real estate. That's what we're here for. And like you said, find what you want, stick to that crystal clear criteria, and make it grow. Joel, well, what's next for Triple N? You have a lot going right now. I want to hear what's the next couple of years. What are you seeing for Triple N Invest?
So I'm fixing to add an acquisitions, full-time acquisitions director, investor relations. Um, I already have a back office person, and I have my marketing team that does all my web design and SEO and all that kind of stuff. I'm finishing up this month. I wrote a personal book, and I also wrote a business book on Triple Net that's coming out. There's a lot of work on both of those books, and I'm going to go on some more podcasts. I still have my own podcast show, Triple Net Podcast. I found there's a lot of work to it, and I'm so busy with my business that the high caliber people I'd have on the show, we play phone tag, and it takes me like it takes each of us like 3 or 4 weeks to like get them on the show because we're both so busy, the high caliber people. And so to try to do 4 shows a month with that, it was just taking up so much time. So I found that just a better use of my time is to come on shows and let them do the editing, and I just talk for an hour, and that's a lot easier that way. And then I'll still have the podcast show maybe once a month. So I have one key person on there maybe once a month. And then I'm thinking of doing a live stream maybe once a week where I answer people's questions. You can also find me on Bigger Pockets. I'm a moderator, commercial moderator on there. And I have about 15,000 posts on there that you can read that I've answered
Wow.
over a history of decades of time. And Josh Dorkin owns Bigger Pockets. When he first started out, it was a one-page website with a couple of bank foreclosure links. Now there's over 2 million investors worldwide on the site. And I knew Josh back when he was the only person at the company. He called me, gosh, over a
Wow.
decade ago to be a moderator on there to help him out. And he was putting in about 90 hours a week and did that for, gosh, about 7 or 8 years until he added in some employees, and now he's kind of partially sold off the company. An equity company came in, and they put in a bunch of employees and all that kind of stuff. He doesn't run it day to day anymore because that's kind of a an entrepreneur. Once you sell a company so far, it gets to be kind of a grind. To add 3 or 4 more employees a year, and that's not the visionary fun stuff that entrepreneurs love to do. When they're first scaling and building their company. And then I'm also going to be on the Dennis Quaid show. They're doing an educational documentary on Triple Net, and they're going to have me on there. And they've had was it George Bush Sr. on there, Colin Powell, a bunch
Wow.
of big CEOs of companies, and they think it's a good time to run a story. About like triple net properties because a lot of people are worried with the recession and the stock market. Where do the retirees place their money? Where do people with money place it to keep it safe and outgrow inflation? So they found my story really interesting. They reached out to me. Their research team found my website, what I'm doing, and that kind of stuff. And went through a process, and So it's, doing a lot of cool stuff. It's for me these days. It's not about the amount of business. It's kind of how do I balance? So here's my main mantra in life. So I've seen a lot of people with net worth, 8, 9 figures of clients that I have, and I've seen their lives, and some of them can be very unbalanced with work with business to the core. And, just also as a piece of information, I find that, people are kind of escaping. So if your business is doing so well and you're having so much success with that, but maybe your home life, it's difficult to talk to your wife or develop your other parts of yourself emotionally and grow. You want to go all in on something that's working, and you want to run away from the stuff that takes the hard work, you know. So you got to really work and think about balancing your whole self, which will make you stronger for your business in all aspects, and put the hard work in on everything. And so my goal is, even though I have a goal maybe to be a billionaire in my lifetime, I have a goal where I only work maybe 30, 35 hours a week. And if the business gets so busy, I'll add more people in to handle the caseload and the workload, because at the end of my life, I don't want people to say, hey, you just like worked
Mm.
constantly, and he was the business and that was it. I want to have memories of traveling and videos and pictures and writings that I want to experience myself, and then I want to have for future generations of my family, where they can look back and see my body of work and how I lived and what I did. And I want to inspire them for the future with their dreams, whatever that is, and that's worth more to me than hitting some number, in business side, but then devastating every other part of my life along the way. I'd rather live a full life and be worth 100 million by the time I'm 70 than be worth half a billion, but like everything I did was the business every day, all day long. And then time just passed me by. You got all this money, and now with your health or, whatever's going on, you can't experience those things you wanted to do in life. I see this all the time when I talk to people.
Yeah, at that point,
That's
money
powerful.
doesn't matter. It's all about, and I know that you've been able to establish amazing relationships. Very impressed with you were in with Joel in the early days of Bigger Pockets. That's great.
Yeah, Josh. Yeah,
Josh, I'm
Josh. Yeah,
sorry. I'm sorry.
that's okay.
And at the same time, I'm still going back there. I know we've just met for the first time, and hearing your impressive career. But I love that Jimmy Buffett and Rodney Dangerfield mix. The only thing I can think about when you said that was the Caddyshack movie with Rodney Dangerfield dancing in the middle of the fairway. Is that you?
Yeah, I love that stuff. I'm just, you know, I'm never like, my office guy, he's great at like looking at the numbers and doing the steps and all that. But I'm always a thinker. I'm always thinking like, when someone looks at a box, I'm looking outside the box and like what pathway can I create this hadn't been done before, Like with my business now, someone will look at my website and they'll look at all the stuff I'm doing and they're like, man, that's amazing or whatever. And I'm thinking like, I've only got like 10% of the stuff I want on my website, like I haven't even like started doing the stuff. And I think, you know, so your audience is listening. This is a huge thing. So like, I think if you learn every single day, like what a lot of people do is they learn the basics of something and then they kind of get mediocre at it
Mhm.
and they're like, well, I know just enough. So I'm just going to like keep going along. And they're like, what's the point of like, if I know most everything, what's the point of learning? And if you reverse that and say, I don't know everything, there's so much to infinitely learn, I can never learn it, all of it. Then what happens is you might only add a little sliver of something a day, but over time, if you keep adding those little slivers up, you surpass the mediocre people by miles. Your knowledge level just keeps increasing and expanding exponentially because you just never stop learning. You always have that um, attitude that there's always, something more to learn. And I qualify knowledge by accurate applied knowledge is power. Um, so maybe that's that 5 word thing you were mentioning or something. So I accurate applied knowledge is power. I think that's close to 5 words. So you could have some knowledge, but it could be somewhat accurate, not accurate, or completely accurate. And then if you have the application of the knowledge. So if you don't apply that knowledge and put it into practice, then you're never going to get a result. So it's accurate, applied knowledge is power. It's just not knowledge. If you have knowledge of something, but it's not the right knowledge, or you don't put it into action, it means absolutely nothing.
Yeah, basically, or in our words, or my words anyway, which I mentioned quite a bit, it's that constant and never ending improvement, because we never stop learning and we can always get better. This is the Collecting Real Estate podcast. So they say you have to have three of something to make a collection. And we have three outro questions for you. And I'll have you reiterate number one, which you just mentioned. In 5 words or less, what's the most important thing you've learned collecting real estate?
Let's see, accurate, applied.
I think you had 3 words.
Yeah, it's 5 words. It's by accurate applied knowledge is power.
That's it.
I mean,
That's it.
that's just really it. I learned something. I check on if it's completely accurate, the source. I seek to validate that. And then if I find it's completely accurate, or if it's not accurate, I'll go find, what parts of it are accurate, and then I'll piece together the puzzle, and then I'll put a plan of action in place to uh, interweave that within my business or my personal life. If it's something that you can use. Like, I learned this from a therapist. I mean, people. I go to a therapist once a month. My wife and I do, because we don't have to. It's awesome. I mean, it really is. Like, something where you're arguing about more than 3 minutes, okay, let's let it go to the therapist. So then you don't have a problem. You're discussing, banging your head against the wall every day, trying to figure out that you both don't have the skills to figure out. You just go there. And one of her best things is it's called HALT: hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. So if you got one or two more of those things going on with your spouse or yourself, that's not the time to talk about some serious issues or topics. You're just going to blow up into yelling or screaming or something else, and it's going to be a bunch of noise. You're not going to accomplish nothing. So ask yourself, if you're feeling hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, if you got both of those, one or two, both of those things going on, don't talk about it. Set a different time and table it, and also set a time limit to it. So we're going to talk about this in 2 or 3 weeks, and we're going to talk about it for 30 minutes, and that's it. And then it's going to be tabled until we go see the therapist or next month or whatever. And then when you do that, it just, like, when you only have to deal with it for that certain period of time, it makes your relationship a lot better.
Yeah, geez,
And so that's just, yeah, it's just personal practices and business practices. You want to look at all those things in your life to help you out, those tools to keep you on an optimal path with everything, so it doesn't go off track.
I can understand that. Time and place for everything. You're very conscious of being in the proper state depending on the situation that you're in, especially with your spouse. Second question.
Oh yeah.
Second question for you: what are your 1 to 2 year personal goals?
Outside of real estate.
Outside of real estate, so I used to be a heavy runner. So I would run I do meditative running. So I would just go to the park, and I would run like 12 to 15 miles at a time, like 4 to 5 times a week. Um, and I just loved it, the high you get from that. But at 47 now, my doctors tell me I have to preserve the joints a little bit. So I had to figure out a new way to work out. So I still run 1 to 2 times a week. But in between that, what I'll do is high intensity interval training. So I'm sitting at the desk a lot all the time with computers and stuff like that. So my thing isn't going to do weights, because I'd just be sitting down again. That wouldn't do anything for me. I need to get cardio and get my body moving. And so the high intensity interval training, I'll do that for like an hour. And it's funny, you just watch the stuff on YouTube, these videos that were created during coronavirus from these trainers, and they do these 5 rounds. And I mean, you burn like 1,000 calories in an hour. They crush you. I mean, these 20-year-old women that I'm watching, I mean, the stuff, these moves they're doing, oh my, it kills me. I mean, it's just like, I used to do martial arts. I'm a third-degree black belt in martial arts, and I'm drenched in sweat like I used to be in martial arts doing this stuff. I mean, I'm like, I didn't know my legs and my core were so out of shape until I started doing these things. And it was just, and then the other part that I would say outside of real estate is just enjoying life. I enjoy taking my mom out to go eat somewhere and just talking to my mom and taking our kid. We're going to the Coldplay concert in Mercedes Stadium. My wife and I, this week, and they usually don't tour here in the United States. Like they do it maybe once every 12 years or something. They're finally here, and um, I just do little things like that. We travel with a 2-year-old. We don't travel too far. We go to usually maybe Hilton Head once a year, every year. And one of the best trips I ever took, though, that you've got to take if you haven't gone, is Iceland. We went to Iceland before my son was born, and that place is just unbelievable. I mean, it is just incredible. We had a private driver drive us around. That's the way to go. They pick you up from your hotel. Don't do the big bus tours because they cram you 200 people on there, and then they take you to hotel every single day trying to go around the island, and you stay 5 minutes at an attraction. You got to hoard back on again. Or if you try to drive yourself, there's a bunch of like dirt roads with no signs there where you need like a four-wheeler type
Mm,
thing, and you'll get lost. So the best way is to use the private driver. But it's pretty cool. He had like one of his clients is Eric Clapton, and then what's that other right? Leonard Skinner band and all that. A lot of celebrities like to go there, and then Eric Clapton goes fly fishing out in Iceland because you're out in the middle of nowhere. No one bothers you there. There's only like 600,000 people on the whole island, and you can just get lost there and just have a bunch of fun. So they've got like 10,000 waterfalls there, and northern lights, and climb ice glaciers and volcano tunnels and all kind of like amazing stuff there, geothermal lagoons and whale watching. I mean, it's just I just want to travel a little bit more too, see the world. So that's just my main things.
awesome. Geez, that's all great stuff. Holy smokes. We could talk for another hour about just what you said there, but we want to value your time here. Last is, how can we assist you and how do we contact you?
So people can contact me at nnninvest.com, and there's a button on there that says start today, and you click on that and you fill out the form and you hit submit, and then that comes through our system, and then I'll be in touch with a time to talk to someone on the phone or ask them follow-up questions if they're wanting to invest with us passively, or if they're wanting to buy, either they got a 1031 exchange or they don't, they want to buy a triple net property. um, I would also add that I didn't talk about in this segment, and we'll probably do another segment just talking about retail centers, because like the triple net stuff we talked about today, I covered maybe like 15% of it or something. I mean, that's how deep I go on that topic. But the main difference between me and all the other brokers out there that people don't know about on the commercial triple net side, it's different. You have these listing companies, so these giant commercial companies, to where they have teams. They have a senior director, junior real estate agent, and they go out and get listings, and that's all that they do. And they have to do volume, because if the commission's 100,000, 50,000 goes to the company. The remaining 50,000 gets split with the three people on the team. So the senior person makes maybe 27,000 out of the 50,000, and the junior agent makes maybe 6 or 7,000 out of the 100,000. What does that mean to the buyer purchasing triple net? It means that when they contact you, they have to do a volume of selling to make any kind of considerable money because of their splits. And so they're typically only selling what's in the seller's inventory, whether that's a good, bad, or crappy property. And they're desperate to keep the lights on and pay their bills. And so they struggle between having the integrity to do that and to make a sale because they're not wealthy. They're usually starting out early in the process. The junior agents are mid-level agents. Um, and so they're not going to look for they don't have time, since they're listing properties, to go look through their whole database for the diamond properties for you. Whereas I'm a principal broker, when I make 100,000, I get to keep the whole 100,000. I'm already ultra wealthy myself, so I can tell someone, this is a piece of crap property, don't buy it. I represent you, the buyer. Would you work with me with exclusive written agreement? I look through all my pre-market, off-market, on-market database I built up over almost 20 years, many thousands, tens of thousands of, owners and other brokerages. And I review those properties, and then I find you the diamond properties to purchase. That's the big difference with me, and I help you through the process versus what you're going to get just contacting one of those big companies that focus on the listing side. That's the key difference. I'm not going to like get you some amazing cap rate when there's like, stuff that's 3 million and below. There could be like 12 offers within 48 hours. But what I do is I evaluate it quickly, and then I get to it before the other people. And the other thing is my clients usually have surety of close, because when you submit that form on my site, you submit your financials, we get you pre-approved with the capital markets mortgage broker. I tell you what the process is going to be. You sign an exclusive written agreement to work with me. And then when I contact these listing brokers and they got 10 offers, when they know I make their life easier and they know I know what I'm doing and that it's going to close, that looks good to their owner, the developer, REIT, pension fund, etc., to get more listings to sell, which is what they care about. They don't want to work with you and double in the listing, because the amount of questions you would ask them as a new triple net purchaser would drive them insane, because in that same time period they could sell 4 listings they have for volume,
That's all
and
great stuff.
make more money. So this is a lot of behind the curtain stuff that people don't know that helps people win deals, but it's like how the business works behind the scenes that they don't talk
Every
about.
response,
Awesome. We need to have you back on soon.
every response he has
Thank you for being
is
on the
another
show, Joel.
podcast.
I know.
Stephen, we need to.
It
We need
is.
to go
Yeah,
for
it
Joel.
is.
Yeah. Thank you for being on today, Joel. We'll definitely get you on again soon.
This was great, Joel.
All
We
right.
appreciate
Appreciate
it.
it, guys.
Have a good day.